Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Living African. As we continue honoring Pride Month, which is the month of June, we will be addressing a few topics and discussing some perspectives about the LGBTQIA community. Members of this community have been extremely marginalized and have suffered from homophobia, isolation, abuse, and criminalization, especially in our African community. Today, we will be having with us Bandi Kiki, who is a Cameroonian public figure, entrepreneur, and LGBT plus activist. She is a founder of Kikam Consulting, a marketing and branding consultancy, co-founder of Rem Clan, a gender-neutral online apparel clothing company inspired by everything LGBTQ. She is also a Rainbow Migration trustee, a Black Beetle Health trustee, a Living Free UK director, and above all, she is African. So I want to welcome you, Kiki, to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm okay. Thank you for having me.
I am so happy to have you on here, and I can't wait, for us to really dive deep into these conversations, because even though they're uncomfortable conversations, they're very needed conversations, and they're, they're things that are very necessary for us to speak out and get our voices heard. So we're just going to dive deep into the questions. So just tell us your story and how you found the courage to come out, considering all the conservative, cultural norms and practices in our African community.
I came out in October 2017, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Through my social media platforms. And I wasn't ready to come out at the time, unfortunately. during the whole Ambazonian crisis, the whole ongoing crisis in Cameroon at the moment, somebody who was one of the influencers went online and said women can contribute to the struggle by stripping naked and taking to the streets. So I was like, that's not how women contribute in this day.
Right.
The Takumbeng thingy where women sort of like go out naked traditionally.
Oh.
Yes. So I was like, that doesn't make sense, because throughout the whole crisis, women were not given a voice.
Yeah.
And to say that we should do that was a bit troubling for me.
Right. So let me interrupt you just a moment. If we can give, since our audience is very broad in Africa, so they may not know what that Ambazonian crisis is. So just maybe in a few sentences, if you can just introduce, just give a brief intro to what that crisis is. It's just a political instability in Cameroon, and
Yeah, I wasn't ready for the question though, but Cameroon is going through an ongoing crisis at the moment. You have 8 regions in Cameroon, which are French speaking. Then you have 2 English speaking regions. Yeah. Obviously, because of English speakers are the minority sometimes, and within the system as well, they're marginalized. Yeah. So there's a crisis going on where English speaking Cameroonians want more from the government or from the regime. Yeah. Some of them want separation, some want secession. So it's a really difficult time at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. So, about the women protesting and stuff, I think that's where we ended up.
Yeah, so there was we had this conversation on Facebook on how he said women should go out to support the crisis in that manner. And I went online to say, no, I don't think women should do that. And some people who supported the crisis thought labeled me a black leg and started digging into my personal life. And after digging into my personal life, they found out about my sexuality, and some of them put it online. And a few other people who had found out before as well blackmailed me. There was a Cameroonian actor, comedian who blackmailed me. He didn't like the sort of content I posted on my blog, and he wanted me to take it off. So he used that. So my coming out was to reclaim my power from them, because it became sort of like a back talk, as opposed to me just saying, do you know what, I'm a lesbian, so what? That they were using it as power over me. If that makes sense.
Wow. That's usually a very, I only imagine that you probably went through so much, because I mean, coming out is a very bold step to the best of my knowledge. I mean, I may not fully understand, but I know it's a very bold step for every member of the LGBTQIA community. So for you to be forced to do something like that when you weren't ready, I can only imagine how traumatizing and just scary that was, because it's like you're putting yourself out there, you don't know what to expect and stuff. So at what age did you first realize that you were lesbian? And what has it been like for you after, you're coming out or you're transitioning into your authentic self?
I think between early mid-teens, I knew I liked women. It wasn't easy reconciling that.
And you're in Cameroon back then, right?
Yes, definitely I was. Yeah. So it wasn't easy. I couldn't see myself represented in the community around me, obviously.
Right.
So begin to think, am I weird? Why are my friends talking about boys? And why am I thinking about girls? So I had this internal struggle. Obviously, now I don't have that. But yeah, back then I did have that. And you asked, the second part was, how did I transition into my authentic? Yeah. It can get overwhelming sometimes, especially with the social media hate, especially with having friends and sometimes some family members who don't talk to me simply because I'm a lesbian. I also have had situations where I've been kicked off a project with somebody that I didn't like that I was a lesbian.
Wow.
I was part of a panel, not a panel session per se, but one of the keynote speakers at an event that happened in March for women.
Right.
Some of the women tried to pressure the organizer of the event to kick me off the event. But she came to me and she said, Kiki, they want you off. I'm not going to take you off anyways, but just so you know. And I really appreciate that because I like to know that to know that I'm not welcome in this room, but I'm going to occupy space anyways.
Right.
Like so yeah, it gets overwhelming. But to be honest with you, coming out is the best thing I've done for myself. I am living my truth. I am happier. My mental health is better. I'm not worried like somebody's going to go online and say this, Kiki is this. Right. I have to for myself. What can you do about it? So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. So while you were coming out, I mean, I can only imagine how liberating it is for you right now, but what were your greatest fears like, and what challenges did you face like in that process of coming out?
I think for myself and a lot of other LGBT people, LGBT plus people in the closet, it's fear of rejection. That's it. People worried about maybe what if there are so many what ifs. What if the parental love I have been receiving is conditional?
Yeah.
What if the siblings don't love me after I come out?
Yeah.
So there are always so many what ifs. And for somebody who is, because obviously I might have people listening to this who are not financially independent.
Yeah.
There's the fear of homelessness. What if I then come out and things happen, it doesn't go as planned and I get kicked out and I don't have a place to live or food to eat? So there's always those fears. But
Yeah. I mean, the homelessness part of it, it's something I didn't even think about, but it's very important to talk about things like that. So now, in terms of having that fear, of the reaction from your family, like what was your own experience in respect to your family, your friends, and even your immediate circle?
I would say my family is on a journey.
Right.
I mean, it took me a while to figure out my sexuality myself. So now that I've told them, they're on their own journey of my relationship with them is fairly good. Things were said when I came out, but those things they're not being said again. There's sometimes I feel like, is everything still the same? Am I still your sister? Am I still your daughter? Right. But you also have moments where you're like, I just know you love me, one of those moments. But
Yes. That's great. In the previous episode that I just had with this lesbian couple, which was very interesting. I'm not sure if you listened to that, but one thing that really stood out to me, one of the words of advice that one of them gave was that, she also called on the members of the LGBTQ community to offer grace to their families, because this is something that a lot of families are not used to. And so they also need time, just as much as you needed that time to figure out who you truly were. You at one point you were confused. You didn't even know, why. You didn't understand certain things. And then you eventually came to agree to be in acceptance with that. And then after that, you came out. So I feel like it's very important as well to give family grace, which I believe is what you're doing. And I really want to commend you for that, because some people, they don't do that because coming out, first of all, is a huge task. And so they just expect that support immediately, but they also have to understand that, we have to also be patient, regardless of what it is, not even necessarily only coming out. There's certain views that we may have that are different from those of our loved ones, so we have to always offer them that grace and patience, One thing I'm
going to add, though, sorry to interject. One thing I'm going to add is this.
Right.
I do understand sometimes when people don't want to hang around a toxic environment whilst waiting for their families to be on that, to come up on that journey or to arrive or whatever it is.
Yes.
So some people tend to take a step back, not because they don't want to give the family time, but they don't want, because as a lesbian already, you're facing people who don't know you, telling what you do with your body parts and what you do to your private parts and what they're going to do to you if they see you in person. So sometimes you don't want that added pressure from family as well.
Yes.
It comes a bit, it tends to hurt a bit differently when it comes from something like this, isn't it? So people always tend to take a step back to be like, you know what?
Yes.
I'm going to give you time, but I'm not going to hang around whilst you abuse me or
right
through your journey.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, on the other part from the family, I mean, while they are taking that time, they need to be respectful, right? Obviously, because if they're disrespectful, then it doesn't really, even if they take 100 years, it won't really make that much of an impact to the person, because when I was my lowest, you literally pushed me down instead of you at least just loving me regardless. You know what I mean? So family also has to be respectful at the same time while they're taking that time to process and come to agreement with everything that's going on. Now, moving on from your family and your immediate circle, how has the community reacted? Well, let's break this down. How did the community react when you came out at that time, when you decided to publicly declare your choice of who you love? Because girl, when I look at your comments, I don't know. I mean, I've told you this before, but I'm like, you are strong. You are strong. Like sometimes I just literally want to tell people off on those comments, but I'm like, nah, you are really strong. So how do you manage all of that?
Well, the Cameroon community is deeply conservative, isn't it? And religion is always a factor when people talk about homosexuality, or when they're talking about anti-homosexuality and all that. So religion is always a factor. And to an extent, I expected that sort of reaction. I expected the comments you see. When I came out, there's a top Cameroonian producer went online to say that he would rape the spirit of lesbianism out of me.
Oh my goodness.
If I ever set foot in Cameroon. And a lot of people cheered him on. There were death threats. I still get a lot of death threats now. I still get people telling me they're going to rape me as well. I still get people saying I'm a disgrace. I had that. I mean, there was much more when I came out. Now some people have come around again through education and things that I've posted. Some people have taken it upon themselves to teach themselves or to unlearn and learn certain things or certain truths about the LGBTQ community. So it's gotten a bit better, but it's still there.
Yeah.
On how I deal with all that. Sometimes it can be overwhelming when it comes from somebody that I respect or somebody that I love.
Yeah.
However, if it's from a total stranger, I don't care. You can't tell me what to do with my life. So I just ignore it sometimes. sometimes I challenge their thought process with information and obviously knowledge. And sometimes, depending on how I feel, I just block. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love it when you said, there are certain people who actually are open-minded to learn. Sometimes they have to unlearn to learn, which is extremely important because I feel like in our community, we are stuck with certain with the status quo or with certain cultural norms that it's so hard for us to break those norms and really be open-minded and take a step back and look at things and hear both sides to make that personal decision or personal understanding. And that's actually why I started this podcast, because I saw too many things that people just assume, people just assume that, oh, if this is this, then this is this, because that's how it's always been, right? But there are certain times that we need to really take a step back and really look at things from the other person's perspective and see where they're coming from to get that better understanding. I mean, I personally am on that journey. I'm on a learning journey. Like even when I have this discussions and conversations on the podcast, I also learn a lot more. I mean, as a heterosexual female, I mean, I don't think I'm better off than a homosexual or a transgender or anything. Like I'm really taking that time to sit back and have these open conversations and learn more from you without judgment. And I really want to urge everyone else to do the same. Now, how has your mental health been affected with all this backlash? And what have you really done to take care of your mental health?
What do I do to take care of my mental health? To be honest, with the backlash again, sometimes, like I said again, sometimes if it comes from somebody that I love and respect, it really cuts through to me. Sometimes if it's not something that I care about, I don't really care about that comment and all that. Self-care for me is food. I love food a lot. I do love a lot of food as well. Yeah. So that's self-care for me. Sometimes it's watching scary movies. Sometimes it's going out for a walk. Sometimes it's hanging out with friends, talking to friends online as well. But yeah, generally I spend a lot of time as well in my mind thinking about different things, analyzing different situations. Not definitely not to do with homophobes and all that. Just have this thing that I do in my mind. So yeah, that's where I go to sometimes. Right. Yeah. And to just say something that I'm finding a bit like I needed to address that. You said we have things. That's the way things have always been when referring to the our attitudes towards the LGBTQ community. Right. That's not how things have always been. Right. Africans have always experienced sexual diversities. This Africans we're talking about now, that's post-colonial Africans who don't know anything, or most of them don't know anything, ignorant about the history of queer Africans and how Africans were accepted within our own community. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. I mean, this is another thing that I was talking to when I was interviewing the lesbian couple. They brought it up again, funny enough. And I totally agree with that because homosexuality, for example, I don't know about, the transgender and everything, but I know for sure homosexuality existed way before slavery or colonialism and stuff like that. And it was actually glorified back then. It was more of like I won't say a traditional practice, but it was more of a sacred practice, So, I mean, it's something that I actually discovered when I was doing some research, and I definitely will read more about it. And if you have any resources that you would like to share with me after the interview, I would greatly appreciate it because I really want to study and really know a lot. So I feel like doing that will make me to better appreciate and understand what you guys are going through, and maybe try to help in some way, So I really appreciate you for bringing that up. And so, I mean, I know you've spoken about a few of the instances that you had in terms of being kicked out, like trying to be kicked out, like from a group or whatever because of your orientation. So like, what other kinds of experiences have you had, like in terms of discrimination because of your sexual orientation?
Okay. I'll start by addressing again the trans, what you said about the trans Africans. Trans people have also just been part of the African culture as well. Okay. I mean, before colonization, there are certain parts in Africa, where gender wasn't a thing.
Mm.
People were assigned genders based on how they represented as opposed to the anatomy. You understand?
Right.
So it's always been part of the African culture. It's just the post-colonial Africans that are a bit, uneducated about their history and all that. Right. Some of them, anyways. Going back to the question, what was the question again?
Yeah, so my question was basically like, what kinds of forms of discrimination have you experienced, especially because of your sexual orientation from our African community and also just like from where you live in the UK?
I guess it's friendships, people telling me off, not wanting to be my friends. When I came out, a few clients of mine stopped picking my calls. They didn't want to associate with me again. So I lost business opportunities at the time. And at the time as well, I had a lot of bills piling on and I couldn't pay a thing. I couldn't do a thing. And I started asking myself, was this coming out worth it, Kiki? Why? But luckily for me, I had the support of other more experienced LGBTQ activists who I had conversations with around that. I have also lost. So there's this thing of people handing down opportunities. Like, oh yeah, I saw this opportunity. Can I just pitch Kiki for the job or for the gig? Yeah. I've had people not want to do that because they don't want to be seen as pro-LG, even though they're not homophobic.
Yes.
They're worried about what that the other end, what would then be perceived. Are they part of the community or are they supporting? Do you know what I mean? So I've had that happen as well. In the UK, I have hardly had somebody do that. Obviously, it's against the law and I would use it.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
So I can't remember that happening here. Of course, I have experienced racism within the LGBTQ community, which is something that's not addressed enough.
Right.
Which sort of like took me back a little bit because I was thinking, how can people who know what it feels like to marginalize
someone else? Yeah. Do you mind giving any? I know it's not part of the questions, but do you mind giving us like just an insight into that, because that's something I've never actually thought about.
Oh yeah, you do. There's a conversation going on now that the LGBTQ community is all about white cis men. I don't know if you know what cis. You're familiar with the word. Yeah. Cis is if you're born with as a woman, so you're a cis woman, as opposed to a trans woman. So there's that power. The power is they have the power and they pull the shots. They it's all about them as opposed to every other black and brown person within the community as well. It's sad that for somebody like me, black and a lesbian and a woman, I tend to experience intersectional invisibility. So I am a woman, which means certain conversations I'm not part of. I am black. The racism comes in. Being a homosexual or lesbian as well. Do you understand? So you find yourself being left out of a lot that should include you.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting because, here we use the term double minority, especially for Black women, right? Because you're black, considered Black is like you're a minority and then a woman. But I can only imagine what it feels like to be a triple minority, because, being a lesbian or a homosexual, that's also something that the society struggles with, so I can only imagine the challenges that you face with that, And so, let's digress a little bit, like in terms of the extreme regulations that are being placed, especially in our African countries, like what are your thoughts about them, especially against gay rights?
I think, it's sad that I think more than 30 African countries still uphold colonial era anti-LGBTQ laws. I think that's very sad. But what is deeply, deeply concerning is the fact that these politicians or regimes use the LGBTQ community as scapegoats.
Yeah.
For example, you have situations where there've been a political crisis somewhere, there've been economic crisis somewhere, insecurity crisis, like a Boko Haram.
Yes. Yes.
You have a president who is not doing anything about that or offering real solutions about that, targeting the LGBTQ community. We saw what happened when Shakiro and Patricia got arrested or got sentenced to 5 years. Yes. And we had a lot of people on Facebook clapping for the government, a government that's failed, to stop what is going on in the English-speaking part of Cameroon.
Yeah.
So, and what is even sadder is how much we fall for it. When I saw what was going on after Patricia and Shakiro's sentence, I was just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We deserve these leaders, to be honest. We deserve them.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. And just for those who are not Cameroonian, so Shakiro and Patricia, two
trans women.
Yeah, two trans women who were convicted for attempted homosexuality. Am I correct? In Cameroon, I'm not sure what attempted homosexuality is, but that's what it was. So, thank you very much for shedding light on that. I mean, you're giving me so many ways of looking at these things that I had never thought about because, it's really amazing how we praise these governments who have actually failed us on the more important things, but they spend their time wasting resources on other topics that they should have been focusing on, building jobs and building the economy and things like that. So thank you very much. So from your intro, of course, you're a Cameroonian activist, a Cameroonian LGBTQ plus activist. So what actually inspired your activism, and do you have any projects that, you'll love to share with the audience?
I think my younger self inspired me to then want to be visible when I came out, or when I was in the closet and young, confused, and trying to see myself represented in the community around me. I needed somebody like me. I wanted somebody to say it's okay, what your feelings are valid. So I guess I'm inspired by that. And I just want to be visible and be that person that other young people who are struggling can then come to as well. As for projects, I have a project I'm working on, but I'm not very sure that it's going to be ready anytime soon. Right. So I don't want to talk about that, obviously. But I was recently given the honorary role as the Grand Marshal for Europe for the Global Black Pride.
Awesome.
So thank you. I'm just using this platform to say that if you are in Europe and you're a Black person, please do join us virtually on June 18th.
Okay.
Be part of that event. It's for us, by us. So yeah.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I think I'm going to put that information as well below. Well, June 18th. I don't know if I think it's probably going to be before this episode airs. So I'm not sure if that will help, but I'll find a way to spread the word. Hopefully a lot more people listen to the podcast so they can get that information. Now, what can we do as a whole, as a community, to be more accommodating of the LGBTQIA community and their right to choose who they love, in your opinion?
I guess self-education is one of the things that you have to do. You have to, like you're doing at the moment. I'm sorry, sometimes I sort of like want to emphasize certain truths because one, if I don't do that, I won't feel okay when I stop when this interview is over.
Right.
Number two, people watching it will be like, Kiki, why didn't you tell her? Because again, the communities can be very sensitive given what we go through as well.
Yes.
So educate yourself like you're doing.
Yes.
Use inclusive language.
Right.
I was part of, again, that event that I was part of in March I had a lot of women in the room talking about husbands and this, and I'm like, a woman, what if I had a wife somewhere? Because I'm LGBT, and I told you guys, I spoke before them, and of course I know that people it takes time for some people to get used to a certain language. They use inclusive language. Don't assume people's sexuality. Some people live in a very heteronormative world in their heads, and everybody, when they see you, like, oh, is your husband at home then? What gave you the idea that?
Right. That's true.
Yeah. So don't assume people's sexuality. And please join us fight homophobia. It's not enough to say that I'm not homophobic. It's one thing to say that, and it's one thing to actually stand up with us and challenge that within our own community as well.
Right. Well, thank you for that. There's also one thing I wanted to add to that, because I honestly, we've launched one episode, right, of the LGBT Pride Month in honor of Pride Month. And as a heterosexual, I really did not expect the amount of backlash that I personally got. So, I mean, it got me thinking. I was like, whoa, like if I can get this kind of backlash, I can only imagine what the real members of the LGBTQIA plus community are going through. I mean, I did not see it coming, and a majority of the people that got back to me, they were basically thinking that I was promoting or convincing people to be homosexual or members of the LGBTQIA plus community. And I was like, no, I mean, even the LGBT people are not convincing people to be gay or to be lesbian or to be whatever. But it's more about trying to fight for their rights. Like LGBTQIA rights are also human rights. You would not like to be discriminated against. You would not like to be maltreated. So why do you think other people deserve to experience to have those bad experiences because of who they choose to love or because of their personal life choices, which has no effect on you? You know what I mean? So what my main goal is to try to educate the African community about the struggles that members of the LGBTQIA plus community go through, all the discrimination and the criminalization, and just mobilize us to be more accommodating and more polite and more kind, and to hear them out just the same way we would like to be heard. I mean, you don't have to agree with everything that someone chooses to do, but hear them out, love on them regardless, because we as humans, our ultimate goal in life is to love and be loved. But you cannot expect to be loved, but you don't give that love out, So that's my main goal of, this, just honoring this month, to really alert and educate us as Africans and sensitize us to be more, to have more empathy towards this community that has been marginalized for so long, So I just wanted to throw that out there. Now, regardless of everything and despite everything, how does it really feel to live in your truth? And I would only imagine, you having that courage to come out, especially as a public figure and an activist. You probably have had so many people, so many Africans, especially who are members of the LGBTQ community and who are also maybe even in the closet still, who don't really have that courage. I'm sure you must have had a lot of people, reach out to you and with probably all kinds of stories and stuff. But so what words of advice will you give to anyone struggling to live in their truth? And how does it really feel to live in your truth?
Let me start by saying that thank you for having me on your platform, and thank you for doing your own part, in this fight. Okay. I always ask for questions before I have an interview with anybody. And I think I did that with you, especially with anyone who is African as well.
Yeah.
Why? Because I have been blindsided, got on a platform, and the questions were very homophobic. And I didn't like that. I kept asking myself, what am I even doing here? Why did I even agree to this? So power to you for keeping it polite, and obviously in a way that's educative, as opposed to in a way that it mocks me or who I am. How do I feel about being a lesbian and coming out? That was a question, isn't it?
Yeah, basically living in your truth.
It feels amazing. I'm not going to lie to you. It feels amazing. I tell you what, let me tell you a quick story. So when I was a bit younger and in Cameroon as well, I was still in the closet at the time, obviously. And I would see a girl that I liked, and I have to do what is called understanding and response, as opposed to walking up to her and telling her, you know, I like you. And I would use a lot of my resources trying to get her to notice me.
Right.
And some of the time, the girls understand what you're trying to do, and they just keep chopping your money. You know what I mean? You know? Yeah. So I struggled a lot. But even though I hadn't, and I thought when I would come out, I would just walk up to women and be like, you know, I like you. But I haven't done that much. I haven't gone up to women and said that to them. Many of them, as I thought I would anyways. But it's just been knowing I have the freedom to do that. I can do that with my full chest, like Nigerians say. You know, it makes me really happy. Again, it's very rewarding mentally.
Yeah.
I suffer from anxiety. And I tell you what, if I have to be sitting down here worried about, oh my goodness, that person who saw me kissing her, is she going to tell somebody else? Like what used to happen in my uni days in Bolton Uni, where I happened to have kissed a Nigerian girl who told everybody or all her friends that I tried to kiss her. Something like that. But anyways, just to have that freedom that I can. Because that's who I am. Not that I'm going to be going around kissing women without consent, by the way.
Right.
That just having that freedom, it eases you mentally. It liberates you. You focus. You have time to focus on other things as opposed to focusing on what if people find out.
Yeah.
And to anyone listening at the moment, struggling with their sexuality or struggling with coming out or anything like that, I have to say this. Coming out is not for everybody. You see, you don't have to come out for your sexuality to be real to you. Do whatever you want to do, because some people are under pressure. They feel like it's something I must do. It's not something you must do if you want to. If you want to leave, because some people prefer to just tell their family members or if people that they think they deserve to know, and that's it. You understand? So you don't have to come out if you don't want to come out. For those who want to come out, I am here. There are a lot of us out here waiting for you to come out. When you do find the courage to come out, would welcome you, would support you. That's really good community support when you do find the right people.
Right.
And to generally anyone listening to this, young people listening to this, struggling with one thing or another, do you, be you. The world is going to adjust. If I exit this life now, like if it happened to have just got out now, I would be like, you know what? I live according to my terms. I didn't do it because somebody asked me to or somebody wanted me to be that person. I did it my way and I'm happy with that.
Right. You know what? Like that level of authenticity is what I hope to achieve. Because even as a heterosexual female, every now and then I still am very conscious about what people will think, how people will look at me. And, it's kind of interesting because even when you were having that morphing into that different person or growing, however you want to grow, it's usually the closest people to you who have always seen you a specific way that are like the hardest people to please, or like those are most of the harshest people, because it's like, oh, you're talking about Anya. Anya has always been this way. Like, don't tell me like she's, and then they make you feel guilty for changing, or they make you feel guilty for having that authenticity to live your best, truest life, So it's something that I have always been very mindful of, because in my own kids, it's the people that I really care about, and I care about their opinion as well. But then again, it's like, do I choose the opinion over limiting myself, or do I just grow and then they will catch up to it? You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, people who really matter will understand that everybody grows and we're all on a journey. So thank you so much for doing that. And that's one thing that I've really learned from all members of the LGBTQIA plus community that I have spoken to, especially those who have, really been out and living their most authentic life. That's literally the goal. That's my goal right there I hope to achieve that level of authenticity. So thank you so much for sharing that. So now how can people contact you?
I am Bandy Kiki on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn or LinkedIn.
Right, LinkedIn, yeah.
And TikTok, TikTok.
Oh, nice, TikTok.
Everywhere. So you can find me on there. You can on all my platforms as well, I think.
Okay.
I do have an email, or at least you can be able to just send me a message, If you have any questions, you can ask me. Please keep it cute, not rude, because I tell you what, sometimes I'm not the nicest person as well, especially when you meet me on a bad day.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you for that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you so much for, taking the time to educate us all and also share your story. I really appreciate all the work you're doing to educate and sensitize, especially the African community, and the support you're showing to those who have been marginalized. I mean, I can't quantify the discussions that we have on this platform, and I can only say thank you. And I hope that the listeners always come to the table and listen with an open mind. I feel like I need to say that now, because that from the feedback I had from the first episode, I really feel like I really need to stress on the fact that we have to come to the table with an open mind and hear both sides of the story and not be biased, because when we're biased, we can't have an open mind. So I just want to really thank you so much for coming to this platform. And we've come to the end of the episode. And I hope this discussion doesn't end here. May we all take these conversations to our circles and really have that discussion. And also, give patience and grace to one another, regardless of the choices that we make in our lives. So I just want to thank you, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.